Possibly. I just know that I haven't had we've been trying to like really make our eggs last, and so we've been trying to like cut back on the eggs. I've been really trying. I haven't had any eggs all week, and I think that could have something to do with it. So,
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
understand that's an excellent source of protein.
Protein, vitamin D, depending on what
Mhm.
type of eggs you get, it can even have vitamin D3 in it. I think the trying to remember the ones that were super high in the fish oils too. The Organic Valley I used to get a lot had they would depending on the feed they gave the chickens, it some of them would be super high in omega 3s. So yeah, eggs are very good for a lot of things. If you can get really high grade eggs, they can help with a lot of issues. But even the regular white ones, they're supposed to have a lot of vitamin D in them. So yeah, I'm gonna have to start eating eggs again tonight. So, but yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So I think we're on the live here, if I'm not mistaken. All right, yeah, we are on YouTube. Shabbat Shalom, YouTube. All of our brothers and sisters out there that are listening and watching today. We're doing a similar study to like I was telling me and brother Dennis were talking off the record before. So this is going to be a study we've done in the past. Who's the fourth beast of Revelation and Daniel? Um, I had to kind of tweak the document a little bit from the past time because there was a little bit of leaven in it, and I apologize. I repent to everyone for using Second Esdras when I shouldn't have. So even though my belief hasn't changed what that verse says, but I unfortunately as a whole I can't use that source. I just can't. I can't use it as a source. It's not a legitimate inspired source. So that's why we're redoing it today. So we're going to start off here, and I just want to change the title actually to make it more specific here. So, who's the fourth beast of Daniel 7, and where else in Revelations, Mom, does it talk about the four beasts?
Um,
Four beasts book of Revelation.
isn't it 13, 17 maybe? The woman on.
4 to 5.
Oh, okay.
Revelations chapter 4 and chapter 5.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's specifically where it talks about the four beasts.
Right.
Okay. So remember, prophecy cannot be of private interpretation. 2 Peter 1:20. Again, it has to be line by line, precept by precept. Okay. We can't just make up stuff as we go along, like the idea that the harlot is America. You can't make that stuff up. You can't just, because you're Eurocentric and you've been brought up in that type of um, culture, assume that everything's about America because it's not. So first we have to take presumptions out of our mind. We have to take our evangelical or Catholic or whatever upbringings you had. You got to unlearn that. And just let scripture speak for what it says. Okay. Revelation 17, verse 4 is going to be the first place to identify this fourth beast kingdom, aka all, and which is also known as the harlot in Revelation 17, because it kind of goes hand in hand. You're going to see that once we get reading. So let's see here. Let me go back to let me first open up one of my scripture apps so I have something to read from here. Um, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. That the fourth beast kingdom, actually, in a way, is the same entity as the actual harlot. So this is one of the clues that gives us who the actual beast king, who the fourth beast kingdom actually is. Um, and again, so by the way, this beast kingdom, if you research research what the Catholic Church believes in their catechism, they will admit they believe they're the mother church. Okay, mother. Okay, they believe they have daughters. That Christianity is their daughters. Okay, Okay. They also believe that they also admit they're on 7 hills. Okay. Just couple key hints there of who this mother harlot is. Okay. So this is not like a super secret understanding here. Okay. History has shown us who it is. Okay. So here we go. We're going to start with Revelation 17, start verse 4. And the woman was clothed in purple. Okay, purple and red, scarlet, okay, purple and red. Which religion has their priests in purple and red, okay, clothed with gold, also clothed with gold on their robes, okay, precious stones and pearls, having in their hand a golden cup. What religion has their priests have a golden cup? Or they're leaders of their religion that have a golden cup being filled with abominations. I don't know, eating pork, trying to make their own Sabbath, abominations, and filthiness of the whoredom of the earth. Now, whoredom obviously here is metaphorical, spiritual. It's talking about like basically the whoredom making, committing spiritual fornication with different religions. They're ecumenical. That could be the fornication being referred to here, right? Because they tell everyone you're all welcome, all roads lead to Rome, as the old saying goes. Okay. So all roads lead to the Vatican. So what does that mean? That means that there's a spiritual fornication, metaphorical sexual morality. Why? Because they're coexist. That coexist phrase is spiritual fornication. Why? Because you're worshiping different gods. You're not just worshiping the creator. You acknowledging another religion, saying that they worship Yahuwah when they worship another god, you are promoting a pagan religion. You are saying that is valid. Coexist, the mentality of coexist itself is directly against what Deuteronomy says. It says, don't make covenants with them. Don't make peace treaties with them. Don't make peace with them. That's what the Catholic Church does into Yahuwah. In Yahuwah's eyes, that's spiritual fornication or whoredom. So again, that fits the bill. Okay. And on her head, a name was written, Mystery Babylon. Why is it a mystery? Because she's not outright calling herself Babylon. Okay. It's a mystery because she's trying to hide herself. Mystery the Great, the mother church, okay, mother of harlots and of abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the set apart ones. And this is where I really don't understand how people are not getting this part here. Because almost universally, you ask a Protestant, even a Protestant would admit that this is talking about the Vatican. Okay, I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the set apart ones, meaning the blood of true believers in Yahusha, with the blood of the martyrs of Yahusha. No. When I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. So again, this is talking about a religious system that killed Yahuwah's people. There hasn't been any other religious system that has killed more of Yahuwah's people than the Vatican. Okay? Why do you marvel? I tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast carrying her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. So let me correct myself. Technically, the beast kingdom is separate from the harlot, okay? But really, it's like, it's a package deal because the beast is Rome or Catholicism, and the woman is the Vatican or the Pope. Okay, so either way, it's a package deal. Either way, so that's why I was saying it's pretty much the same thing. It's almost like it's the same entity because the woman that sits on the beast is part of that beast kingdom. She's part of that religious system. So I just wanted to clarify and apologize for misspeaking before. The beast that you saw was and is not and is about now. This is where people get confused. They're like, well, isn't this supposed to be talking about a kingdom? No, this starts talking about the actual person, the beast, not the kingdom. So the beast that you saw was and is not and is about to descend out of the bottomless pit. Now, we're not talking about the anti-Messiah today, but put just to put, it out there for you that are new to this ministry, we have preached and still preach the truth about the beast, that it is not your next president, it is not the next pope. It has always been Nimrod, and it always will be Nimrod. And you can find that in inspired biblical sources, in the prophets, him being called the Assyrian, other places where it talks about this guy, who Messiah, even in the book of Micah, talks about that. Micah says that he who is our peace will kill the Assyrian when he treads in our borders. That has not been fulfilled. There's a guy known as Ashur that has to come into the land of Israel, and he will be killed by Yahusha. And there's many other hints that it's Nimrod. The idol shepherd, the fact that the idol shepherd has one eye covered, which is one eye symbolism you see all over in America and all around the world. And with the Hollywood elites, they cover the one eye. Why do they do that? Because they worship Baal. If you know anything about Baal and Nimrod, Nimrod was rumored as Horus to have lost his left eye. This is why you got the eye on the pyramid, okay? That's where it comes from. So Yahuwah has shown us many signs throughout history who the beast is. And if you read Revelations 9:11, it even calls him Apollyon, which Apollyon, almost every scholar out there would admit, Apollyon is a derivative of Apollo, which Apollo was the sun god. And his sister, I think, was Artemis or whatever. So again, when you go into all these mythologies and these pagan history, it's very clear that Nimrod is the beast. He's always been the beast. Okay, he was the first dictator on earth. So it's very clear what that's talking about there. So hold on, I think Brother Yahusha is trying to get in. So even though we're not talking about the anti-Messiah today, guys, I just want to put it out there. Our group unanimously, for the most part, believes Nimrod is the beast. Okay, so this verse is talking about the beast person, not the kingdom. And when you look in the Greek, you can tell when it's talking about the kingdom and when it's talking about the person, because there's two Greek words. There's Basileus, I think how you pronounce it. The one is Basileus and Basilia or something like that in the Greek. So they're two different Greek words and they mean two different things. So don't get confused when it's talking about verse 7. It's talking about the kingdom, obviously. Verse 8 is when it starts talking about the actual man of lawlessness. So don't get confused by that, because a lot of people get confused and they try to spiritualize this and try to say, well, the kingdom is rising. No. It's talking about a person. It's talking about a person ascending physically from the bottomless pit, from the abusos, the abyss. Okay. No kingdom is in the abyss. Okay. Now you could claim, I guess, that Satan's kingdom is the abyss. Okay, whatever. But the point of the matter is, it's not talking about a kingdom metaphorically ascending. It's talking about a literal person. And anyway, but just wanted to extrapolate that, and just to rightly divide the word there, just so you guys don't get confused. So Shabbat Shalom, Brother Yahusha. So we just went through the first bullet point, so you didn't miss much. We went through Revelation 17:4, talking about the colors, how Yahuwah is trying to give us hints with colors in prophecy, and Yahuwah does that a lot. Like he'll sometimes give you colors in a prophecy to try to identify who the person is being taught, who the entity is that it's talking about. So again, there's no other religious system that wears purple, red, has a golden cup, sits on 7 hills, all that together.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other entity other than the fourth beast. There's no other entity than the Vatican and the popes that fit this bill. There's no other entity. People can say, well, there's 7 hills. I've heard people say Judaism or whatever, Zionism or whatever. Problem is, Zionism does not wear red, purple, and have a golden cup. Okay, so it has to rightly identify the scriptural fourth beast. It has to fit everything. It has to fit all the prophecies that are referring to it. It can't fit just one, because people will say 7 hills. Yeah, many places have 7 hills. It's not just the 7 hills. It's about what the mother harlot is supposed to be. And I was explaining earlier before on the record that the mother harlot sits on the four beasts. So you can't have the beast be another religious system. You can't have the beast be, you can't have the beast be anyone else. And then obviously the Vatican is sitting on it. So it has to be part of that same religious system. That's why I preach and still preach that the fourth beast kingdom is Catholicism, aka Rome. Because
do you think this new Pope, oh, by the way, Shabbat Shalom, guys.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, sis.
Shabbat Shalom, sis. So do you think this Pope, this USA Pope, has anything to do with prophecy? Because I thought the other Pope was the one that was supposed to, quote unquote, was supposed to be the last Pope.
Yeah, that's a false Catholic prophecy. That's they're whoever made that prophecy. I'm glad you brought this up, sis, because this is what confuses people a lot. First of all, that prophecy was not given by a believer of Yahusha. That prophecy was given by a pope. That prophecy was given by someone who actually worked for the harlot at one time. So whether he was being genuine and he really thought he had a prophecy, that's a whole nother story, a whole nother ballgame. But I would not take any Catholic prophecy serious. I would not, just like I wouldn't take any evangelical Protestant on the YouTube talking about, the Lord gave me a vision. I would take that with the same amount of grain of salt as any Christian on YouTube making a prophecy. I don't believe that's a legitimate prophecy. I think that was given by the devil to make people think possibly that Francis was going to be the last pope and to throw people off track. Yeah. That would be my theory on why that was given. I forget who gave that. I think it was Malachi Martin or one of them. It was either one of the two that's very famously ex-Jesuits. I know it was done by ex-Jesuit, whoever gave that prophecy. So it was done by someone that was in that system. And who knows, that system could have told them, hey, when we make it look like you're leaving us and exposing us, give this fake prophecy out. It could have been something as simple as that. Go ahead, brother.
So with that prophecy, Francis didn't even if that was a legitimate prophecy, which it wasn't, because it comes from the war. But even if it was, Francis doesn't even fit that prophecy to begin with. It says Peter the Roman would be the last pope, and that wasn't Francis's name. I know Francis had his name changed, and I guess the reason they say that it was him was because the guy that he took the name of, his name was he had Peter in his name and he had Francis in his name. Francis took the name Francis. He didn't take the name Peter. So you have to stretch that prophecy and the things that happen in order to even make it fit. People are just grabbing at straws here.
And Francis was also, he's actually Argentinian and Italian. I mean, he was actually born in Argentina.
Yeah.
And he's an Argentinian. But now they're saying that this new Pope, whatever, I guess he's calling his name Leo the Fifth or the Sixth or something like that. They're saying that now they're coming out with all these accusations about how he looked the other way regarding child abuse and all this stuff. But why did he change his name to Leo?
They all do. They all change their name. All the popes.
I think they want to make it sound more Latin is one of the reasons. They want to make it because they've had different ethnicities within the papal service, and they want to make it look more authentic, more Latin, because that's the language of the Vatican. It's Latin. So they want to make it look like, they're I guess purely Roman. I guess that would be one of the reasons, because it's very big for them to all have Latin type of names, Latin sounding names. They all try to do that. Yeah, it could be that, and plus kind of like celebrities. They don't want to use their regular names, kind
Yeah,
of like
it's-
that.
It's really something.
It's like they want to hide stuff.
But they all changed their names. None of them use their real names when they become pope. It's like, what are you trying to hide? It's a little skep, if you ask me anything,
So, let's see.
that they do that.
I want to look up something here because Malachi Martin.
But we can all agree that the Vatican
Oh no. Oh, no.
has something to do with prophecy. That's a given, right?
Yeah, well, I would say I don't doubt that these popes have something to do with prophecy, but the idea that they're the beast or that they're the Antichrist, actually, that tradition, that false tradition, goes way back. It actually goes to the reformer time period if you trace it back far enough. And what happened was the reformers, whether it was an inside job, like some people, like I know Truth Unedited has put out there that he believes that there is an inside job about the Reformation. Whatever happened with the Reformation, they hated the Catholic Church. They had a pure hatred for them, and they, because of their hatred, chose the Pope as the beast in their opinion,
So the Pope
without
is
any
four.
proof.
The Pope is
So
four, not the beast, right? Because I always thought it was the beast too.
nah, I believe that if he has anything to do with prophecy, he'll be the false prophet. If anything, that's what I believed about Francis. I was proved wrong about Francis, but if a pope has anything to do with Revelation in the end times, he'll be the false prophet.
And
He won't.
who's the whore? I thought the Vatican was the
The,
whore.
yeah, the whore. See, this is where we get confused. We got the whore is a system. It's not one person. The whore is a religion. It's a system.
Mhm.
Like, I'll give you an example. Like the woman, right, in Revelations 12. Usually when they're talking about a woman in prophecy, it's a belief system.
Yeah. that's
Okay,
true.
for example, Israel, woman. We are all Israel. We are categorized as the woman in Revelations 12. The woman being Israel.
Mhm.
So what we've got to realize is when John is being given this prophecy, he's being given specific terminology
Mhm.
to identify things metaphorically. Metaphorically, the harlot, aka a woman, okay, in Revelation 17 is talking about a system, is talking about you could either say the Catholicism or the Vatican. Either one is I wouldn't say you're wrong with either one, because they're both tied together. Whether you look at it as the fourth beast who she's riding is Catholicism
Mhm.
and the Vatican is the harlot, either way, they're tied
Mhm.
together. Either way. And Rome has always been looked at by Yahuwah's people as the last beast kingdom. And that's kind of what this study is about. It's about even historically how the Hebrews, the Abri people, have looked at Rome, Edom. They've always looked at them as that. Even when you look at the Targums even show that, which I have one of the Targums listed at the end. Once we get to there at the end, I'll show you. Even in the rabbis' minds, they understood who the fourth beast always was. And this was lost information because we get raised in Christianity and we're raised in this, raised in that, and we're not raised in a Hebrew mindset. We're not raised in a even a historical Hebrew mindset. We don't even know what they believed historically way back in the early AD time period, like 1st, 2nd century. This was something that was very obvious to them, because what you got to understand is even in their own traditions, they believed that Edom founded Rome. So to them, Edom and Rome is the same.
Mhm.
They believe that Edom, found Rome. Even the Romans at the time of Yahusha, a lot of them might have been Edomites. Even when you look up Herod, right, the Herod that tried to kill Yahusha,
Mhm.
supposedly he was an Edomite. So when you actually look at like what scripture and prophecy talks about, even with sometimes even identifying spiritually Edom with Rome sometimes, and even using the same type of language. So when you look at all the prophets combined, not just Revelations, it makes it very clear who the fourth beast is. And even we just read Revelation 17:5 and 4, it talks about wearing purple, red, okay? The popes wear purple and red. They have a golden cup. Okay, so they represent, they are the priests of that religion. So what I mean by how this shows that it's Catholicism, they are the leaders of that religion. They represent that religion. And during Easter time, every Easter, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mom, they wear purple and red on their robes. They have a golden cup, and they have abominations in their religion.
Mhm.
They have names of blasphemy in their religion. Why? They say that their vicar, the title for the popes, Vicar Fili literally means like in place of Yahuwah, like in place of the Most High, in place of Elohim. That's what Vicar Fili actually means in Latin. So literally, they're calling themselves in place of the Creator. They have that anti-Messiah spirit. They might not be the anti-Messiah, but they have that spirit in them. That spirit of the mother harlot of Babylon, of Ishtar, and of Isis has always been in that religion. It's always run that religion. Their whole religion is basically Babylonian mysticism. It's just covered up by a veneer of Christianity. But what it really is, it's Babylonian mysticism. It is the mother harlot. It is the what is it called? Abominations. The ones that worked all the abominations, that committed whoredom with all the other belief systems of the earth. How did it commit whoredom? Like I was explaining to my mom on the recording earlier. How does she fit that? Well, she has ecumenically involved every other religion.
Mhm.
That to Yahuwah is spiritual whoredom. You are committing adultery spiritually with all these other belief systems. You are saying you're all included, all inclusive.
Yeah.
Many ways to God. That is spiritual whoredom. That is literally drinking of her whoredom. Anyone that kisses the Pope's ring, drinking of the harlot's whoredom. And anyone that does stuff like that and acknowledges the Pope, you are part of drinking of her cup or fornication. So this is what I mean by historically, to fully explain this, historically it's been proven that she's always been the harlot. The moment Catholicism was created, it became a continuation of the Babylonian mystery religion, and that spirit of Semiramis has always followed it.
Mhm.
It has always been in it. It has always followed it, and you can trace it back all the way to Nimrod in Babylon. When Nimrod died, who received the worship? Her, his mother. She received the worship because he died, and she, made everyone think she was like the moon goddess or whatever. But the point is, that spirit of her, even though she's dead, that demon has followed these religions, and especially Catholicism, and where the devil has used Catholicism to deceive so many people and to get people into
Mhm.
a Babylonian mysticism without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Without even knowing it, people are partaking in the mystery religion of Babel, and people don't even know it. So that's what I mean by this. It's never changed. It's never been a new. And to explain what Sister Marissa was talking about, well, there are different entities. Okay, so you got the mother harlot, who is the Vatican, popes, Rome, however you want to phrase it. So that religious system also has a beast kingdom that is righted. So you could say the mother harlot is actually the Vatican. Catholicism is the actual beast. Now, technically, when this whole one world religion happens, yes, it will be bigger than just Catholicism. But as for right here, right now, if I was to identify, just pick one religion that fits it, it's Catholicism. Because Catholicism has made martyrs of Yahuwah's people more than any other religion. And you could bring up Judaism, whatever, any other religion, there's still not as many martyrs as what the Vatican has done, as what the Catholic Church has done. They fit it to the bill, even when you talk about the blood of the set apart ones in verse 6 there. They're 7 mountains. They sit on 7 mountains. And like I said before, yes, other places sit on 7 mountains, but other places don't fulfill all these other prophecies. They don't fulfill the purple and the gold and the red. They don't fulfill with all the martyrs that the Catholic Church have created. It got so bad, I think they had to actually apologize at one point. They actually were forced to apologize in public for the Dark Ages or whatever, because of so many people they killed. Okay. Let's see here, verse 9, 7 mountains. We talked about that. The Vatican sits on 7 hills. So we also have Obadiah here, 1 verses 1 to 4. I'll show you here how this can really, Obadiah 1, 1 to 4 can show how Edom and Rome are going to establish, like almost like we already see this kind of happening with the world's kingdoms, where Yahuwah is kind of even knocking at NASA here. If you pay close attention to this prophecy here, he says, if you mount up as an eagle, and if you shake your nest among the stars, from there I will bring you down, says Yahuwah. What's interesting about this is one of the Apollo missions.
The eagle has landed. Yeah.
The eagle has landed. The funny thing is, I think it was Apollo 11 or 13, they had a logo on their patch where it showed an eagle on a nest on the moon. So it seems like Yahuwah was even foreshadowing, kind of being facetious with them and saying, even if you do something like this, I'll knock you down. If the and this whole chapter, by the way, is about Edom. So what's interesting here is that Edom is not just one isolated family. Spiritually speaking, Edom is like the kings of the earth. All of them that will serve the anti-Messiah could be spiritually identified as part of that Edom Roman kingdom. So, like, I believe Yahuwah is not just talking about physical Edomites in this prophecy. He's talking about this last beast kingdom and what he's going to do to them. Because you see certain things that don't just apply to Edom, like verse 4. If you mount your nest among the stars as an eagle. Okay, that if that is talking about NASA, that would be talking about the whole world. That would be talking about all these pagan nations, all these nations of the United Nations that have tried to do that. Russia, supposedly, even though we know no one's gone to the moon, Russia tried to claim to be the first one to go to the moon.
Yeah.
So Yahuwah would even be including Russia. So that's what I mean by there as a whole, Edom and Rome seem to be the identity of this last final beast kingdom. Whether you want to call it Rome, whether you want to call it Catholicism, either way, it's the same entity. It's the same. So just to explain in simplicity, you have the Vatican, who's the harlot, the beast kingdom, Catholicism, and you have Nimrod as the person who is the beast. Now, the second beast, which I was referring to earlier as possibly a pope, that is the false prophet. That's what's called the false. See, this is where everyone gets confused when we talk about the person as the beast. Technically, there's 2 beasts. Yeah. When you talk about people, I'm not even talking about kingdoms right now. I'm talking about people. There's 2 beasts. The first beast is the one that died, that had a wound to, eye wound, head wound, right? Revelations. Then you have the second beast who brings fire down from heaven. That second beast is the one that's causing the first beast to come back to life through false sign, lying wonders. So the false prophet is actually the one doing that. So you could kind of look at, the false prophet is supposed to be a satanic counterfeit of John the Baptist. That's the easiest way I could put it. It's a satanic counterfeit of John the Immerser. And the beast is supposed to be, the first beast is supposed to be a counterfeit of Yahusha. So that's why I believe when the beast comes to earth, he will probably look like everyone's been trained to think the Messiah looks like. Because his whole goal is to counterfeit. Right. That's his whole goal. So you've been given this false image of the Messiah for so many years for a reason. There's a reason for that. The devil, I have to give him his due. He's not a dumb guy. No. So he got everyone to believe in this pale white, effeminate, homo-looking Jesus for a reason. There's a reason behind that. And, there's been apparitions cited about, the whole Sananda garbage. Okay, Lord Sananda of the New Agers. all that is to bring in an ecumenical Jesus Baal for people to worship, for the whole world to worship. So, not going too much on a tangent here, but so there's really three entities in Revelations to answer Marissa's question. You got the harlot, you got the beast she's riding, the kingdom, and then you got the beast who's the anti-Messiah, the first beast. So when we get to like Revelations 13 and 14, when you get to there, know that when it's talking about the beast, it's not talking about a kingdom. So when it says the first beast and second beast, it's actually talking about the anti-Messiah and the false prophet. The anti-Messiah is the first beast that it talks about. The second beast that brings it back to life is the false prophet, because that's his job. His job is also to give out the mark of the beast in Revelations 11. That's part of and that's why a lot of people thought that that Pope Francis was the false prophet, including us. I was proven wrong. I thought he was the false prophet because it seems like that's what he was working on, Sunday law.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's moving the system forward. I believe that he was the beginning one to get things moving forward. I will be very surprised if this guy, if this Leo, does not move it even further into ecumenicalism and even further into that sort of one world religion that they're headed for. He's going to take what Francis did and he's going to move it further.
Yeah, because Francis wanted things.
So
he was also for abortion, all the stuff that Catholics were like appalled about, like they were shocked.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's why I thought he was going to be that second beast
me too.
In Revelations 11 and 13.
Yeah.
It could be anyone. Honestly, Scripture doesn't say that the false prophet even has to be technically. I mean, I've always assumed that it is part of that same religious system, that fourth beast kingdom, but technically it doesn't. So could someone like Elon Musk fit the false prophet build? Possibly. I'm not denying that either. I'm not technically. It doesn't literally say that he's a priest or you know what I'm saying. It doesn't say that it has to be a religious person.
That's right.
Technically, I don't want to be adding a scripture or prophecy here. So
now, what about the part? Is there a part in the scripture that says that he's supposed to be a good-looking guy and that he's supposed to be homosexual and that he's supposed to be addict?
No, that's the anti-Messiah. People are adding a scripture there. It doesn't say that he's a homosexual. It says that he had no desire for women. So I would more interpret that as asexual. Like he's not interested. Like that is kind of like how Yahusha is. And I think that's the whole thing, is he's trying to be the counterfeit of Yahusha. Yahusha wasn't desiring a human wife. That could mean what it means by not desiring women. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You gotta be careful not to add the scripture there. Because if we don't,
Elon Musk would not be, because he has 15 children.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But see, with the Pope, either way that works with the Pope, either interpretation would work for a Pope. Yeah. So I think that's why a lot of people look at the Pope.
Yeah.
See, I still think though he's more of a false prophet than the beast. Again, he can't ascend the bottomless pit. Again, he cannot. He is not a king of a Nephilim hybrid army like Revelations 9 says. The locusts are a Nephilim hybrid centaur army. The normal human being cannot do that. You can't. So even if you want to go to Daniel 10 or 11, that's only one prophecy. This is what we got to learn: is all the prophecies must fit together to identify the anti-Messiah. So either way, yes, it's interesting that the Pope could be considered someone that's not supposed to desire women at all, to be asexual, or a lot of them become homosexual. But as far as all the other prophecies, the popes would never fit the bill. He's also supposed to destroy Israel's armies in the same chapter that you're referring to in Daniel 10 or 11. He's supposed to be a army general. He's supposed to be able to defeat all their enemies and act like the true Messiah. No pope has ever done that. And popes in their job description, there's no way they would be, a soldier. or someone that's
Mhm.
commanding an army. So that kind of debunks any type of, like I said before, you have to research and find out where this idea of the popes being the Antichrist comes from. It comes from solely the Protestant Reformation. It comes from the idea that because they didn't even look at the anti-Messiah as a person. See, this is what a lot of people don't know. They looked at the office of Pope as the Antichrist. That's their literal words, the office.
Mhm.
So meaning it didn't matter the person. So this is how they found their little loophole with these Protestant reformers. They would say, well, whoever's in office is the beast. And again, that's you're adding to scripture there. If you're saying it's the office rather than the person, you're now adding to scripture. So no, I don't believe that any pope will fit what the evangelical church is trying to make them fit prophetically wise. They are going to be at best a false prophet, if that. It at best. I don't think you'll ever see a pope as the anti-Messiah because it breaks prophecy. They're not from the bottomless pit. They're not the king of these locust creatures. You know, you can't get around Revelations 9.
Yeah.
It makes it very clear what the beast is. The beast is like a hybrid demonic creature or demonic being that's even called the messenger or Malachim of the bottomless pit, being compared to Satan himself. So this is where I really recommend people look at all the places in Revelations. When you talk about the first beast, when you talk about the actual anti-Messiah, you got to go through all the prophets, even Micah, even, go so on and so forth, all the prophets. Go ahead, brother. Sorry for making you wait so long.
Oh, no worry. I'm curious as to your thoughts of him being an American.
Could you say that again?
I'm curious as to your thoughts of him being an American, the new pope.
Yeah.
I
got some thoughts on it.
I think it's interesting because that would lead to my interpretation of America being one of her daughters, and that possibly that's the next step is maybe this Leo guy could help the Vatican and America, have one of the Vatican's daughters, even nations-wise, come back to her. And, maybe get Britain back to her and all these other daughters that she's had. And because even when you look at Rome as a nation, Rome has many daughters.
Haven't you guys heard that Trump wants to be reunited with the monarch? I heard about that a couple weeks ago, that he wanted to get back into the monarchy with the UK. Now that you just mentioned that, Doug.
Interesting.
I think, honestly, that we've always been even though we haven't executed the monarchy, we've always been under Britain anyway. This whole fallacy of the Revolutionary War to me was just a smokescreen. The freedom from it was never real. We've never been free from Britain. So in a way, what Trump is saying, I wonder if they're making him say that to keep the illusion that we've been free. I wonder if that's the whole purpose of him saying that. Because if you really look into it, ever since, what is it, Brother Dennis? I know you know this better than me. Ever since a couple hundred years ago, we've been considered a corporation under the Queen of England. So there was never really a real freedom as far as government-wise even. Like if you're owned by someone, you're owned by them. You're not a free nation. So that whole, I think the whole monarchy thing, I don't know, that I wonder if Trump is just saying that to try to reinstill the matrix of that we were free in 1776. Because when you really look at what happened, we're not free. Most of the founders of this country supposedly were British. They came over here and they established a new nation. I think, to me, it was just a smokescreen. To me, I don't think it really matters because even to this day, America's a corporation of England. I don't think it really matters. Okay, they changed the government, but we've always been owned by England. So like that to me, I don't know. That to me, I think is more or less to keep the illusion alive that we're free. I think that's more or less to get people to get a rise out of people and be like, oh, we got to fight for our freedom. And, you know, to create what they call nationalism.
Yeah.
And to me, that I don't know, just to me, that's what I think. I think it's more about creating this illusion that we're free and that we've been free since 1776, even though the Declaration of Independence wasn't even signed on the day that they tell you that it was signed on. It wasn't signed on the 4th of July and all that. So they're lying to you about everything else about that. What makes you think that you really have freedom when they're lying to you about everything about what happened in 1776? There's so many clues out there that we've always been owned by England. I remember we had mailboxes at our one apartment where it had the lion and the unicorn on it. And what was that? The coat of arms, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
Like, let me see if I can look this up real quick. Coat of arms, where you got the unicorn on one side, you got a lion on the other side. Yeah, I knew that's what it was called. So we had these on our let's see if I can find it real quick. So one of these here we had, this was on our mailbox in Jersey. If we're free, why do we have this? That's just something to provoke people that are listening to research these things. Research these things. Why is our language? Why did we still use the British language up until the 1900s if we were free? Why didn't we create our own English language back then in the 1700s? Why were we still using modern English? Not even modern English, but modern British language. So these are things that we really need to research and not assume that we have any kind of freedom that they're telling us. You know, all this sovereignty nonsense. Okay, that's the problem too. Is that all these things? It's all distractions by the devil, in my opinion. It's all distractions. It's all, you know. The fact of the matter is, like I said to a sister the other day, we are Israel in Babylon. That's what we are. We are Daniel's 70-year captivity time period again. That's what's really happening here. Now, we might not be here for 70 years, obviously, but we're still going through the same situation. We're in a Babylon that's not our own. It's not a free country. It's not our own land. And, you know, I think the sooner we realize where we are, scripturally speaking, you know, what type of captivity we're in right now, I think the better off we're going to be. But this whole sovereignty thing is a huge illusion. It's a huge illusion. But anyway, so let me see here. So we talked about 7 mountains. We did Obadiah 1:1-4, talks about if you rise up as an eagle. And I talked about the NASA connection there. Okay. And if you really think about it, NASA is working with like all the other countries. That's like the what was it called? The Union, what is it called, Mom? The
European Union?
No, 1948. What did they call it?
Oh gosh.
The United Nations.
Oh, right.
So that even ties in with the United Nations and all that, because they all want to do space stuff. They all want to, all these kings of the earth want to do that stuff. So now we're going to go to the origin of the 4 beast kingdoms and show you how even back in Daniel's day, Rome was the 4th kingdom. So we're going to even go with that Rome was prophesied in Daniel's day to be the 4th beast kingdom. You know, that's why you saw a lot of stuff in John's time when Rome came around and took over Jerusalem. In John's time and in the time that the Revelations was being written, you know, a lot of people thought, you know, and I could understand their reason for it. They thought Nero was going to be the beast because a lot of things were happening in the first century.
Temple.
In the 1st century AD, you had a lot of stuff happening in Rome, and Rome was treating Israel very poorly. And, you know, that's, you know, so, but we'll go into that right now. We're going to go into, we'll go into that a little later. We're going to go into now Daniel 7, verses, let's see here, we got verse 8, verse 20 to 21, and 23 to 25. So, Mom, if you want to.
Okay. All right. So 8.
Yeah.
While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Now you said 20?
Yeah.
20, 21. Okay. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up before, which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them. Now, where do I go now? That was 20 and 21.
Go all the way to 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings or kingdoms who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for times and a half a time.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's look at verse 25, right? Who partially fulfills that in 300 AD?
Yeah.
Who so happens to be the first pope? Constantine, right? Yeah, brother. Yeah. So we see this again. And who is Constantine the ruler of? Rome. Just so happens. Like, Yahuwah works in patterns. He doesn't want to confuse us here. It's not very difficult once you follow what Yahuwah is showing you here. It's a pattern. It's again and again and again. So Constantine was working in that spirit of Revelation 6. He was working in that white horseman who's the counterfeit. He was working in that same spirit to take away the Torah, to make you take Easter, to make you forget the Sabbath, to change the calendar. Go ahead, brother.
So it's interesting that you mentioned. Hold on, let me go. Interesting that you mentioned, these things go in patterns, right? And all throughout history, we can see patterns of the beast and patterns of his kingdom to come. But what I see is that, and I know you would agree, is that people jump to the pattern that they see, thinking, "Oh, hey, this is prophecy being fulfilled right here." But they don't take those prophecies, especially within the book of Revelation, and especially when it comes to the mark of the beast, especially within the last 5 years, I would say around the time COVID happened, you had a lot of people looking at the pattern that was going on and thinking, "Oh, hey, this prophecy coming to pass," and not taking those prophecies in Revelations in the fullness of their context, and really being kind of led astray because of it.
Yeah. I definitely agree with what you just said. Yeah, I think it's key to always understand prophecy doesn't, even though it can be fulfilled all at once, a lot of the times it's not.
Yeah.
And I would say a tube rule of thumb is, if we're still around and sin's still around, he was not the full fulfillment of it. If you still got to wait for the second coming, obviously Constantine wasn't the Antichrist. He was a type,
Mhm.
just like
Yep.
Sennacherib, the king of Assyrians,
Yep.
a type. Just like the Pharaoh of the Exodus, a type. Okay, there's many.
There's been
That's
many.
why John. What does he say? He says there's been many antichrists.
Mhm.
Okay, even John himself. John himself in First or Second John, wherever that verse is from, is letting you know prophecy. He's kind of hinting that prophecy works in threes or fours. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be all at once. And I hate to say it, those that have a preteric, I think it's called, or whatever the what is the view that everything that
I know what
everything
you're
that's
talking about.
happened at once in 70 AD was the second coming. Is that
Preterists,
preterism?
they call it. Yeah.
Preterists. So preterists out there have to ignore this. They have to ignore real history. They have to ignore the fact that this has happened with multiple people. Verse 25 has been partially fulfilled. Even Antiochus Epiphanes in 100 to 208, not AD, but BC. Around the time of the Maccabees, you had Antiochus Epiphanes of Greece doing the same thing. Okay, so he was telling them not to eat pork. He was telling them to forget the Sabbath, forget circumcision. So literally, you have multiple antichrists throughout history that are led by that singular anti-Messiah spirit spoken of in Revelation 6. And a lot of people, I just want to show this for people. A lot of people misunderstand this as being Yahusha. This is not Yahusha. Okay, where it says he was given to conquer. Okay, this is not talking about Yahusha. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow. Okay, Nimrod, hunter, bow and arrow. Okay, and a crown was given to him, king of the world, Genesis 10. Okay, and he came out conquering and to conquer. What was Nimrod in all these mythologies? What they would say about him? Oh, who can war with Nimrod? Who can war with Gilgamesh? Who can make war with him? Or all these pagan histories all say the same story. He was this hunter that became the king of the world. So this, I believe Revelation 6 is talking about that same evil spirit of Baal, spirit of Nimrod behind the person. And I believe in the final fulfillment of this, it will be the person themselves. It will not be just led by that spirit. It will be Nimrod himself. So that's how we get the final fulfillment. But just to explain what Brother Yahusha was talking about, it's important to understand there's patterns. Yahuwah works in patterns, and Yahuwah, if he's giving you patterns, that means you still got to wait for the fulfillment of that pattern. Okay, so when we see prophecies that are fully fulfilled, they're fully fulfilled. We can point to somewhere in history where something's fully fulfilled, and we can say, okay, that's been fully fulfilled. Now, with Daniel 7:25, we still have to wait for that, because we see also in other places of Daniel, Constantine did not fulfill all that. Did he defeat all of Israel's enemies? No, he died. So he did not fully fulfill that. And even with Sennacherib, a lot of people want to say Sennacherib was the Assyrian or Ashur in prophecy. The problem with that is Yahusha as Malach Yahuwah with a sword, he's the one that killed the 80,000 men, or the 180,000 men, was actually Yahusha pre-incarnate. He stopped Sennacherib from entering the land. Now, when that prophecy in Micah gets fulfilled, he will be allowed to go into the land. So that's the difference. A lot of people don't catch that, but if you look in Micah, I think it's 5 or 6, okay, it specifically says when he treads your borders, meaning he's treading into the land. So anyway, so just to explain that, how prophecy, it's very important that prophecy must be fulfilled the way it says it's going to be fulfilled. If it's fully fulfilled, every aspect should be fulfilled. And that's the way prophecy is, because there is no in-between area in prophecy. Either there's still stuff left to be fulfilled, or it's already been fulfilled. There's no, guesswork. So I just talked about that. Partially fulfilled with Constantine, verse 25. Catholic Church claimed ecclesiastical authority, Remember how it says the dragon, Satan, will give his authority to the beast. And so the Catholic Church claims to have ecclesiastical authority to change the Sabbath. To me, this is a hint here that Satan worked through the Vatican, the Catholic Church, to try to change Yahuwah's law.
Yeah.
This to me is a partial fulfillment right here of changing times and law. Okay. This is a Hebrew cultural source, and this is the last source I think we have here. Okay, so this is a Hebrew cultural source that is an interpretive version of the Torah in Genesis 15:12-13, in the Jerusalem Targum as well as the Pseudo-Jonathan Targum, both identifying the fourth beast kingdom as Edom, aka Rome. Now, I know some people are going to say, Doug, well, Targums are not scripture. I'll agree to disagree, because quite frankly, there's sects in Judaism today that use them for their liturgy. So even the what's those dark-skinned let me see, I'm trying to think of their names. Yemenites. Even Yemenites would argue that at least one or two of the Targums they read from their liturgy in their synagogues today. So it is considered by some groups as legitimate versions of the Torah. So I'm just saying. Okay. Now, do I know for a fact whether Yahuwah gave this prophecy to Abraham or not? No, we don't know. We're going by the person's expounding. Okay. So this I just find to be interesting, and I wanted to include this as cultural historical backing to what we believe here. Okay, about who the fourth beast kingdom is. So let me just pull this up here. Okay, so first we're going to go to the Jerusalem one. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So in certain ways, the Jerusalem one is a little less rabbinical than the Pseudo-Jonathan. It's very fragmented too, as you can see. Okay, so this one probably was very old. They argue because it's so fragmented, it would have been one of the older Targums and older interpretations, especially when you talk about Genesis 1 and all that in certain verses. So let me see here. Let me go to, I think it's Genesis 15:12. So their belief here, the belief of this scribe here, is that Abraham, when Yahuwah was putting him to sleep, right, he believed that Yahuwah was giving Abraham this prophecy that later on Daniel gets. So again, do I know whether this is true for a fact? No, I don't. Because, again, this is expounding. This is what they believed that was passed down when they came back, and they came back from the captivity. These are what's called interpretive versions of the Torah. So they're basically expounding to what they believe possibly historically might have happened. Because they, again, scripture says, now the reason I believe this could be very true and very legitimate that it was given to Abraham is because we see in Isaiah, and I'll just pull up the Isaiah verse here. Yahuwah says, I tell the end from the beginning. Now, obviously, I think all of us would agree, the beginning, the word for beginning is Bereshit. So Yahuwah would literally in the Hebrew be saying, I tell you the end from Bereshit, which would then seem to believe, a lot of them believed that, there's no way Daniel could have been the only one to receive this revelation. So let's see here. I tell you the end from the beginning. Just want to give you guys this verse here, this reference here. So, okay, Isaiah 46:10. So I'm going to type this in the chat here. Isaiah 46:10. This is where they got the concept. Okay, so let's see here. It starts on by here. It says at verse 12, and when the sun was going to set, a sleep profound and sweet fell upon Abram. And behold, Abram saw four kingdoms. So this is the beginning of the Daniel prophecy that they would believe Abraham was given before Daniel. So, which should arise, 4 kingdoms that would arise, bring and would bring his sons into subjection. Now that's interesting. So, like, slavery, like servitude. Terror. So, first is called terror. The greatness of darkness fell upon him. Terror, which is Babel, number 1. Darkness, that is Media Persia.
Mhm.
Kingdom number 2. Greatness, that is Greece. 3rd kingdom fell. And it's even saying you that it fell. Oh no, maybe it's actually saying Edom, Rome fell, which would be interesting. Because we do see, the head wound thing and all that. So that'd be interesting if it's saying fell, that is Edom, parentheses, Rome. That 4th kingdom, which, no, it is talking about Greece that fell, because Greece did fall at that time period. Darius defeated Alexander the Great and all that. So that's why they're saying Greece who fell. And then Edom, or that is Edom, Rome, that 4th kingdom, which is to fall and never to rise again forever and ever. So what's interesting about that would give credence to that Rome never really fell.
No, that's right.
And actually, historically, we could back this expounding, whether you want to call it commentary, expounding, up. Historically, this lines up. And it's interesting that this guy felt inspired to write this, because whoever the scribe was that wrote this, because this ends up coming true. This ends up coming true. The 4th kingdom still standing, has not fallen, but will eventually fall.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like to point to Napoleon historically and say that was a fall, but not really. What happened was the Pope was removed for a time. That wasn't really a fall of the kingdom. It was just that the Pope was, not in power. That's not really a fall of an empire. So again, where people like to say that it's Rome revisited, I think Chuck Missler liked to call it. I'm like, I respectfully disagree. Got a lot of respect for him as a researcher, Chuck. But if he was here today and we were talking about, I would be like, sorry, but I have to disagree. It never fell. It's been here.
Split.
It's split, yes, but it never fell.
So life support.
It's split. It had an eastern leg, western leg.
Right.
That's where Edom comes in, by the way, guys. Edom is rumored to be the actual Byzantine Empire. So Edom specifically would have been, Edom is the Byzantine Empire, according
This is interesting.
to, I know, and I know, again, this is extra biblical source, but I think with this has enough, there's enough supporting to it, what we've already read from Yahuwah's word.
I thought it was much later. It happened in 395 AD. So literally right after, once Constantine was gone.
See, it says right here, in some rabbinic interpretations, Edom is associated with Rome, particularly in the Midrashim and Talmudic. That's fine. I have no problem with it being in the Talmud, because not everything in the Talmud's a lie. Some things historically were just written down in their oral traditions. So as far as history, we can prove Edom is Rome. We wouldn't even need that source to prove Edom is Rome. There's been multiple sources for that. The fact that you have the Spartans, what was that verse, brother? It talks about in First Maccabees. If you track the Spartans are brothers.
I'll look for it.
Yeah, with the Israelites, or at least with Judah. So let's see here. Here we go. Let me fix my shared screen here. So this is First Maccabees. Again, historical source. I'm not saying it's scripture, but it is historical. Okay. First Maccabees 12:21 states that the Spartans and the Yahudim are brothers, claiming they are both from the family of Abraham. So anyone that tells you the Spartans are Greek, wrong. Grecians and the Hebrews were never brothers. Okay. We know who were brothers, though. Esau, and Jacob. Okay. So again, this is showing the Roman Spartans are from Edom. Okay. So again, see, I have no problem quoting Jewish historical opinion when it's backed up from history. I have no problem doing that.
Mhm.
As long as it's factual and it's backed up from history, it's not a fable, I don't mind doing that. So, it's very clear that Edom is Rome. Very clear. So I think there's even another legend in pagan history where you have the Brother Dennis, what is it? The two wolves or whatever. Romulus, Remus, or whatever it is,
Oh yeah, twins.
the twins that were raised by wolves, or however it goes.
Yeah.
That supposedly Edom, there's something about that story that talks about Edom founded Rome. I would have to go back to it about that legend, but go ahead, brother.
You know, with the story of them being, I mean, it could just be legend, but I wonder how much of it, like, really is true. Like, them being raised by wolves. What if they were raised by lichens, which I believe are real?
It's possible.
Or, like,
I mean,
hybrids.
it's very possible. I mean, I've seen certain stuff like that creature they're trying to recreate now is kind of like a lichen in a weird way. I mean, it wasn't fully hybrid, but I think in that show, what is that show called? The Game of Thrones. Yeah, it had like a wolf that could look like a baby wolf and then like transform into like a 100-foot wolf. That's like not normal. I don't know anything Yahuwah would create as a wild beast that could do that. That seems like a hybrid to me too. So there's got to be some type of truth to some of this stuff. But the story we're talking about, guys, is the Romulus Remus story, and there was some Jewish source that talked about how Edom found Rome. I'm trying to find that right now. And how it connects into Romulus and Remus and all that. Here we go, Torah.com. This is the link I found before. Here we go. Esau, the Ancestor of Rome, by Dr. Malka Simkovich. Esau and Jacob's sibling rivalry. This would actually make sense too. Why Rome wants to take possession of the set apart land. This would actually make sense. And why Rome and Judaism are so hand in hand. Because then you have the Ashkenazi, who are part Edomite as well. So, and this would make perfect sense with a lot of what we've been seeing, what's going on. Where now Esau, like Rob Skiba theorized, Esau is trying to trick the world into believing he's Jacob. And it's almost like, Esau wants revenge. Like the Edomites want revenge for what, Jacob did to Esau. So let's see here. It talks about this. Israel and Edom, the historical connection. Again, there's a big historical connection with all these cross references here. There's a lot here in this link. I recommend you guys look into this. Judea and Idumea in Second Temple times. After the destruction of Judah in 586, the Edomites who sided with the Babylonians, see, this is where Yahuwah got pissed. They sided with the Babylonians in their conquest, expanded their territorial holdings westward all the way to Ashkelon. So I think wouldn't this mom also break Yahuwah's covenant, which he never broke with Israel about that land? So now Edom's going all the way. It says Edom at that time during the captivity, they were going as far as Ashkelon. So now they're trying to steal the land.
Right.
So as much as what was once southern Judah, including Hebron. So yeah, this is a big deal. This is probably why Obadiah 1 was written. Centuries later, the Maccabees rebelled against the Syrian Greeks in 167 BC. The Judeans also took their fight to the Edomians, which, by the way, is just Greek for Edomites. So don't get tripped up by that. That's just Greek. All right, so First Maccabees 565. Okay, so that's interesting. So there's a lot of history here. So don't like this is why I don't always go by what the AI says on Google. They're trying to say that it's only rabbinical source. That's not technically true. If you got history, like if we consider Maccabees at least a historical book, that's not really a rabbinical book. So technically, that was before the Sadducees and Pharisees, or at least I would say that would be the beginning of their existence. So to claim that's like, you know, a rabbinical source, I think is ridiculous. So just be careful. Like, don't believe everything you see on the internet with that. You know, so they're trying to make people believe that this is only rabbinical. So there's a lot of proof though with the whole interpretation of Edom being Rome. And there's a lot of stuff here. I think he pulls something from Paul too. Let's see here. To understand the development of this rabbinic interpretation of Esau and Edom, we need to look at a parallel process of allegorizing Esau, which begins with the Yahudim believing Homilides Paul of Tarsus. So talking about the apostle Paul. Because believe it or not, Paul was actually, even though he was fully Israelite, he was born in Rome. So he was a Roman citizen. So that's why he's saying that. You can kind of see he's talking about, if you look at Paul's letters, you see kind of the behavior between the Yahudim and the Romans and their enmity towards one another. I'm not going to read that. He should have included that. Okay. All right. Tertullian, even interesting, mentions this. So now this is not just rabbinical. Now this is talking about on the other religion has something historically mentioned about this. This would be a Circe Catholic, Circe father of the beast kingdom here, mentioning here. So the first church father to state explicitly that, okay, yada, 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 and Esau, oh, wow, that's pretty messed up. So see, this is where you see the enmity here between the two groups. So now Tertullian supposedly is trying to portray that Esau represents the Jewish people. That's pretty messed up. And that Jacob represents Christianity. That's pretty messed up. That's pretty messed up. And if he's talking about real Yahudim and not Judaism, that's even worse. So you already see the enmity between the harlot, and if he is talking about real Judeans, in that quote would be Israel. So you already see the two, you know, are constantly Edom and Israel constantly always at war. And even in the first century, the whole reason of, and this is another thing that proves to me that the Israelites always looked at Edom as Rome and as the last beast kingdom, because their messianic expectations, maybe not literally in the word, but their expectations, for one of the reasons they didn't accept Yahushua was because they wanted someone to kill the Romans. They wanted someone to save them from the Roman Empire. They looked at the Roman Empire always as this, you know, of this kingdom of Satan and of this last beast kingdom, which, you know, Yahushua at that time, that wasn't his mission, was to free them from that type of bondage, you know, of being subject to the Roman Empire. And a lot of them rejected him because of that. So what that shows to me, though, on a historical level, rabbinical or non-rabbinical, the Hebrews always looked at the fourth beast kingdom as Rome or Edom. They always did. There was no differing of opinion. So the only time you get away from that, like I said, is when Christianity comes about. Christianity comes about and Catholicism comes about, and of course they don't want you thinking that. So then they create preterism and this and that. And the Catholic Church makes you believe in preterism or deceives you into preterism and puts the focus off of them. And so they, that's the whole thing, is that, the early believers in Yahusha, like Paul and all them, they knew what Rome was. This was not a mysterious interpretation. This was something very, well in their mind. So I'm just trying to see in this article if there's any historical references here. This is a pretty interesting article, though. It does have some stuff from Maccabees. It has, and it does seem to try to portray it in a very historical objective. There are some tradition here, but there is some also historical stuff from Maccabees that shows this enmity there. And it just makes perfect sense. We see this in prophecy, even ignoring the quote unquote rabbinical stuff. You look at prophecy by itself, it's happening even right now. Rome has always been that last beast kingdom. And that's, even matter of fact, even if you're a preterist, now that I come to think about it, you have to believe Rome is the beast kingdom. You have to believe Rome is the fourth kingdom. You can't get any way around it, because the only difference between us and the preterists in that specific area is they think everything happened already. That's the only difference. But either way, you would have to believe that a Roman emperor, for example, they believe Nero, who obviously we don't believe is the beast. But the point is that they would have to, they're forced even in their own belief system to believe that an emperor of Rome at one point in time was the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
And to them, it is the Antichrist. So you literally would have to accept that Rome is the fourth kingdom. So, people can scoff on these extra biblical sources that I'm showing you, like the Maccabee stuff. But the point of the matter is, it was universally understood by the Abri people way back in Yahusha's day, after Yahusha's day. Like I said, the only time this has been debated was after the creation of the Catholic Church. It seems like when the Catholic Church was created, it's almost like they pull a ruse over everyone. It's like, oh, we're not the bad guys anymore. We're with you guys. We serve your Messiah. And it's like a ruse was pulled over people. And that's what I kind of see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I see that, like, the true, and I'm talking about Nazarene, I'm not talking about Christians. I'm talking about true followers of Yahusha always looked at Rome as that. It wasn't until Constantine came around and, thought he was slick with his whole political reasons, so-called, to bring the pagans and whatever, whether it was Christians that were there or Nazarene that were there, he created a hybrid religion in Catholicism that had just enough from the New Testament to deceive people. So, and that's all that really happened. So, but Rome, I always like to say Rome never fell. They literally put on the mask of Christianity. And that's all it ever was. It was a mask. So anyway, so hopefully you thought this was edifying. But again, to me, one of the proofs that they always believed this was, again, even in the Targums, they identified that last kingdom as Edom, Rome. Historically, the Targums do have value because it shows what the Hebrews believed at that time. Whether you want to think the Targums are inspired, whatever, that's to you, each his own opinion. Not trying to convince you, but what I am trying to convince you is the historical fact that there was no argument about who that final peace kingdom was going to be. In Messiah's time, before Messiah's time, after Messiah's time. Like I said, it's only been in the past 1,000 years that all of a sudden, we've changed because, now the Catholic Church replaced pagan Rome, supposedly. And now, the Catholic Church is so nice and they do all these good things and yada, yada. While, mind you, aborted baby skulls are under the Vatican. While, mind you, they got statues of the devil, idols of the devil under the Vatican. So again, like, the Catholic Church is not what it seems to be. Okay. It never changed. Let me see here. I think there's someone with a hand up. I can't see whose hand though. That is weird. There's like a glitch here. I see a hand. What is going on, Zoom?
Not me.
I know it wasn't you. I'm trying to look. I'm like looking at all you guys, seeing who it was. It was just on the corner of my screen. Next time I'm going to take a screenshot to show you guys what I'm talking about. That was the weirdest thing on earth. Okay, it was like literally by the end button. There was like a hand. What? Who's lowered? Who's raised hand? And then none of you guys it shows having a raised hand. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I've been having a lot of weird things going on with my phone. I had to actually factory reset it today. That's not so bad.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys got something out of it. And if there's any questions, feel free to comment, email, whatever you want to do to ask us a question. But I think, I mean, with the amount of sources we gave you just with Revelations alone, breaking it down, it's very clear that who the harlot's always been, who the beast kingdom has always been, the fourth beast kingdom, and so I think the only thing we forgot to do that we might. Oh no, we went through it, right, Mom? In Daniel 7, the four beasts. Okay, all right. I wanted to make sure we did that. Yeah. So again, from that verse in Genesis 15, what they did was they took that prophecy from Daniel and interpreted it and expounded it into the Genesis 15:12 when Abraham of sleep falls upon him. So in the Hebrews' mind, they always knew the first beast kingdom was Babylon. They always knew Greece was the third kingdom and Media-Persia was the second kingdom. So that was already established post-Babylon captivity. They already knew that. And they knew that Rome was going to be the fourth one. And, whether it was hindsight or they just knew because of other things that always pointed to Edom in the scriptures. It always seemed like Edom was going to be that, that kingdom that always going to be a thorn in Jacob's side. Always, like, just Esau always wanted to, first of all, he wanted to kill his brother. Even if you go to the original narrative, he wanted to kill his brother because he felt like his brother, stole something from him. So, which in reality, if you look at the whole story, Jacob in the womb was given the Baraka. He was given, that prophecy, not Esau. So a lot of people forget about that. A lot of people are like, oh, Esau's the, innocent one. Yeah, Jacob was already promised that way before what happened with the whole Jacob's mother asking him to do what he did. Okay, so a lot of people forget about that prophecy. Let me see if I can bring that scripture up here. So there,
Brother Doug, okay? So being that his brother supposedly, allegedly had forgiven him when they met and they embraced and cried shoulder, do you feel that was just a show on the part of Esau because there's still this feud between them and Esau is probably still trying to seek revenge, even though the scriptures tell us that they kind of made peace with one another?
I think, honestly, I think it could be possible, or maybe it was just like you said, just a front. It could go either way. I think, though, as far as the further on with the Edomites, they had their own intentions, what they wanted to do. And the Edomites themselves, it seems like they never really had much love for their brothers. They really never, when you look at the whole story in Obadiah and all these other places, the Edomites did a lot worse than what their father did. They did a lot worse. They helped Israel's enemies every time. They were purposely laughing at them to scorn every time Israel was going into captivity. Like, they on purpose were making themselves enemies of the Israelites. So I think, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter at all, but I think it's kind of inconsequential when you look at the Edomites that came from Esau, either way, were going to hate the Israelites. So either way, they were going to want to kill them, want to mistreat them. They hated them. I think that's where the enmity comes when you look at the first century, where the Pharisees, they hated the Romans, and they were like, "Why are you going to preach to Romans? You know, why are you?" And even with the Greeks, they had a distaste. For the Greeks too, they didn't like the Greeks either. They're like, why is he going? He's going to the dispersion among the Greeks, and you see, like, there's a hatred there for the descendants of Jacob, for the descendants of Esau, and it goes back and forth constantly. So I think, even if let's just say, right, that let's say that he actually was trying to make up and he felt bad. Best case scenario, right? He felt bad for what he was going to try to do to Jacob, and he was really, really repentant and all that. His descendants did not share that. I don't think his descendants shared that type of repentance or remorse at all. And I think either way, there was always going to be that enmity. But it's hard to tell whether it was sincere or not. We definitely never see Esau ever repenting to Yahuwah, ever coming back to Yahuwah, even if he's very, even if it seems like he loves his brother Jacob and everything, he's still like against Yahuwah. He's still at enmity with Yahuwah. So there's still that there too. There's still like never a repairment. We know for a fact that relationship between Yahuwah and Esau was never repaired. I don't think it was meant to be repaired. When you look at some of the scriptures in Malachi and all that, I think Esau was always going to be a bad seed. Unfortunately, that was part of Yahuwah's will in a weird way.
He said, "In Esau I hate," right?
So I mean, he said that in a way, and he talks about it in the context of election in Malachi, if I'm not mistaken. So he's saying that before they were born, that Yahuwah already chose out of the two who was going to serve him. And so I think that's where the tough thing is. Even if Esau became a quote unquote good brother, he was still going to be a pagan. He was still going to be a heathen, and that enmity, would have passed from any type of enmity that would have been in him. That type of hatred for Jacob would have been passed on, and we see that with his descendants. His descendants have they could care less for the Israelites. They laugh when they fall. Everything that it says in Psalms not to do, they pretty much did to Israel.
So would that be the Muslims against the Jews?
Nah, not with Yahudim, real Yahudim being not the Ashkenazis. No, I actually believe the Ashkenazis are Edom. I believe the Ashkenazis are actually related, way more closely related to the genetics. Like, if I took a genealogy test, I'm mostly Italian, Sicilian, and you got an Ashkenazi to take a genetic test, our genetics would be very close to one another rather than the Israelites. So the reality is that, like, the Ashkenazis are of Khazar, Ashkenazi, some are even Edomite. And so they're actually Edom. Now, with the Palestinians, some people want to claim that they're, whatever, what is it called, Philistines or whatever. Some people want to say they're Philistines. Some people want to say they're the Arabians or whatever, this or that. I think, if anything, the Palestinians are from Judah, if anything. They would actually be of Jacob, and that's the reason they want the world to hate people from that culture. They want people they portray, the Islamic people as evil. I don't know, Brother Yahusha, if you were going to mention that. But that's what I believe is more realistic with the two groups, is that the Palestinians, a lot of them are part of Jacob, and that the people that are in the land right now are actually part of Esau, or are of Japhethite lineage. So it's more like you got Edom, who's tricking people into thinking they're Jacob, versus those that they've already demonized. and they've already made you think that, oh, they're just evil Muslims.
Well, see,
And
Palestinians came from the Persians.
No, not the Persians. Oh, Mom, where's Persia today?
Is Iran.
Iran. So the Iranians would be the Persians. Yeah. So we've been taught that too, to think every Arabic person is of the same lineage. That's that's almost like a prejudice. Like we've been taught to think by school systems and everything that they're all the same. They're not. The Palestinians. I remember someone. I forget if it was Jeff. It might have been Jeff or Zakiah shared something on Facebook about it. Go ahead, brother. About them going back to Judah.
Okay, so okay, so you have, after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, large numbers of Yahudim fled southward into various parts of Africa and also eastward into parts of Arabia and surrounding regions. This diaspora of Yahudim, or rather this diaspora, led to different groups of Yahudim settling in areas later inhabited or overtaken by Arab tribes during the rise of Islam in the 7th century. So they would be mixture of Yahudim and Arab. A lot of the people, the Palestinians today.
Yeah, I agree with that research. Yeah, and also technically, someone else, even though I don't recommend them as a teacher, quote unquote, there was someone who, as a researcher, brought up that the farmers, right, the farmers that were left behind when they went to, supposedly there's been some research done that the Palestinian farmers that are still, some of them that are still in that land today, actually go back to Yehuda as well. So you have actual factual information that some of them were Yahudim. And it kind of makes sense when you look at what the Zionists have done. They've demonized them here in America. They made you think that all of them are terrorists. Number one, 9/11.
Yeah.
You think that was a coincidence? No, it wasn't. Because if they are real Yahudim and that's they're ethnically part of Yahuwah's original people, the devil would want to demonize them. It's very slick and subtle of the Zionists to do that. Okay, they own the media. Remember, they own all the media. All the media is Jewish owned. Okay, so they're gonna put the narrative out there. Oh, they're all Muslim, and not all of them are Muslim either. Not all of them are Muslim. That's another lie. Not all Palestinians are Muslim. So there's a lot of like prejudice, demonic prejudice put on Arabian people. And not all Arabian people are the same lineage either. Again, that's misinformation.
Yeah.
So another thing they did was made you think they're Philistines. Number one, I can debunk the idea that they're Philistines very easily. The only reason people have that idea is because King Jimmy called them Philistines.
Yeah.
Or somehow mistranslated Philistia as Palestine. Not even the same word. So again, King Jimmy, he didn't know Hebrew and Greek that too well. Or if you want to say it was his translator's fault, the team of translators he had, they didn't know the languages that good either. So that's what caused the whole confusion about them being so-called Philistine. They were not Philistinians. Philistines, the majority of the Philistines we can prove were giants. The only time the Philistines are mentioned, they're Nephilim. They're not regular humans. So the idea that somehow a tribe of giants would be the Palestinians is almost laughable. So that's to me, it's like,
well, where they probably get that from is because
they lived in
it's known as the Gaza Strip there, that whole strip. And we do know, don't we know that Goliath he was from Gath.
But the problem too is that the word Palestine is only a certain amount of year old. Like, so you're confusing two different words that are not the same.
Right.
And you're renaming regions that didn't have that name. So that whole idea, like, is just misinformation. It's misinformation from a translator that didn't know what the heck they were doing.
Mhm.
Essentially,
That's
but you can easily disprove that when you know who the Philistines were. First of all, the Philistines, hate to say it, the original Philistines, they were a lot darker than Palestinians. A lot darker. They came from Mitzrayim, okay? So they're from Mitzrayim's lineage, Ham's lineage, okay? They're not going to, even if you have whitewashing going on, they would still look a little darker than what a Palestine person would look. So, in my opinion, I think they would not look the same. But again, if they're Nephilim, if they're a Nephilim tribe, you got to throw that idea completely out, because there has yet to be any evidence that any Palestinian is a Nephilim. So, of what I'm aware of, research that I'm aware of, there has yet to be any physical evidence that's the case. So to me, it's very obvious that theory is in the water, and the theory that all Arabians are Muslim, that's just prejudice. That's stupid and prejudice. We're taught that in school. We're taught that in the Zionistic owned media. Like I said again, Zionistic owned. Okay, so they're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you their side. They're not going to tell you the truth because they own everything. These bankers, these Zionistic bankers, in which, by the way, half of these Zionists, by the way, to piggyback off of the study we did today, Edom. Most of them are Edomites, even the Zionists. So again, you have this concept of Edom wanting to deceive the world into thinking they're Jacob. And that's really what's going on. And the whole anti-Semite, you're anti-Semite if I say these things. That's all to deceive people. That's all to get people to think. First of all, I always joke around. I say, if you're going to call me anti-Semite, I would have to be disrespecting someone that is of Shem's lineage. Number one, because the root word of Semite is Shemite. Okay. If you're not a Shemite, how can I be committing anti-Semitism? Okay. So that's another thing. But anyway, hopefully you guys found this edifying today. Hopefully this helps you in your studies. And I just want to, on my last note here, I notice a lot of people in this walk, they hold on to this belief from Christianity, and I don't know if it came from Catholicism or that these things are not important, that prophecy is not important. I'll say this to you. If prophecy wasn't important, I'll quote another person. If prophecy is not that important and we don't need to be bothered with it, we just need to worry about working out our own life, working out our own salvation, trembling, that's it. And we don't need to worry about prophecy. Why does Yahusha promise a baraka to those that study prophecy? So are you saying that receiving a special baraka that you get from nothing else is not important? I would definitely reanalyze your belief system on prophecy, about prophecy and whether it's important or not. Because, and again, to me, that's another stamp of approval that Revelations has to be inspired. It's not just John and his opinions, because you have Yahusha bringing his message through a messenger to John. He's actually speaking. And they're there. Today is also what today is a day where a lot of people, I forgot about this to address this. I usually just address this on community posts on YouTube because it's really short to put it in, just to put it at, as plainly as I can. I forget if it's today, Mom. When is the whole pagan Mother's Day? Today?
Yeah.
Tomorrow. So tomorrow's what the world calls Mother's Day. In actuality, it goes all the way back to Babylon, as we've been talking about. Semiramis, the spirit of Semiramis. Paul, in I think Acts 19, says all of Asia, meaning Asia Minor. Asia Minor and the whole world worships her. Okay. So when you understand that, you understand where all these pagan holidays come from, or holidays, I like to say. So Semiramis was the original Mother's Day celebration. It was all about celebrating her being the Queen Mother, the Queen of Heaven. It was not just about celebrating motherhood. It was not just about celebrating the birth of a baby. Okay, it was much deeper than that and more evil, way more dark and evil.
Mhm.
It was about the idea of the mother getting worshipped, her receiving worship, and also the we all know that there is the virgin birth is real and all that. The problem is with Catholicism, they have turned that, perverted that into the idea of the eternal virgin, which is a Babylonian myth.
Mhm.
Semiramis was called in the Sumerian texts, and I think some of the Babylonian texts, she was known as the eternal virgin. That's where you get the eternal virgin from.
Yeah.
Miriam did not stay a virgin.
Nope.
She had Yahusha, and then she had lawful, righteous intimacy with her husband, Joseph. That's why James is not Yahusha's full brother. He's his half brother. And actually, his real name is Jacob, by the way, not James. Okay, Jacob and Yehuda, or mistranslated as Jude, was his other half brother.
And he had more
This
than
is
that.
how we know she did not stay a virgin.
Mhm.
Got 2 children by having relations with her husband, Joseph.
And her daughters or other sons.
Oh, go ahead, brother.
When you say that she didn't stay a virgin, it's an interesting thing to be talking with a Catholic and take them to that verse where Bush is talking to his other brothers, especially the Catholics that believe that she remained a virgin.
What did you say, brother? We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was about to ask. Could you get in close?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
I said it's a funny thing when you take a Catholic that believes in the eternal Virgin Mary, and you take him to the verse where Yahusha is talking to his brothers. Pretty interesting when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, like we've been saying in this previous study that kind of goes into this Mother Day thing, right? What is Catholicism really? It's the religion. It's the religion of the harlot. It's the religion of Mystery Babylon. And this is what people need to understand is like, this is why Yahuwah tells you to get out of her.
Mhm.
Revelations chapter 18, get out of her. This is why you cannot stay in the church. The church is the harlot. This is what Christianity will not let you know. If you stay in the church, you are staying in the beast kingdom. You are staying in the harlot. You are literally choosing not to be saved. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality. That's the reality. They don't serve Yahusha. They don't. And even when they claim to serve Miriam, no, they don't. They serve the Queen of Heaven. When has Miriam ever been called the Queen of Heaven? Never. Ishtar has. Isis has.
Mhm.
Semiramis is the Queen of Heaven, like in Jeremiah. They baked cakes, hot cross buns
Right.
to the Queen of Heaven. Who
Yeah.
created hot cross buns? The Catholic Church. This is all institute. Reason, brothers and sisters, those on YouTube watching, I'm hammering this down right now. This is important to understand, especially of us that have already crossed over. Don't let your parents, and me and Brother Yahusha have seen this, where the devil puts false guilt
Mhm.
on brothers and sisters to do stuff for their parents around this time of year. I don't care what voice is telling you to go back there to please your parents. Don't do it. Don't do it. Your salvation means too much. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to please your parent for that one day. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to please your sister that might still be in the harlot, or your brother, or your
Mhm.
uncle, or your aunt. It's not worth it.
No.
But brother, they don't say that. They say we're going to honor her because it's a symbolism. I've heard people say, well, I'm going to honor my mom, even though, you know what I mean? They look at it as just honoring their mom on this pagan demonic day. It's
That's
like,
right.
really? You know
We
what it's
gotta understand. We don't get to piggyback off of what you're saying. We gotta understand it's not about us. It's
Right.
about him.
That's right.
It's about how he looks at it. We could look at it all
Mhm.
day any way we want. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
He's not gonna on Judgment Day give extra mercy to people that use the excuse, he knows my heart, every time they do a sin in their walk. and say and rationalize their sin and say, he knows my heart. And every time they say, oh, well, I did it for my parents, he's going to be like, what did I tell you in Matthew?
That's right.
What did I tell you? Can you even follow me if you can't love me more than your parents?
That's right.
Can you even enter my faith without doing that? So what makes people believe that he's going to give a little slap on the wrist when you're worshiping the Queen of Heaven instead of him?
No.
This is what Yashar needs to understand today. Modern Yashar, a lot of us that are grafted in, he is not going to have mercy for us on things that he didn't have mercy on for the previous Israelites that were scattered. What makes you think that he's giving us extra mercy versus them? That's the crazy thing. That's the thing we've been tricked into. To think that it's different today. Again, that goes back into dispensationalism and all this garbage, and that all we have is grace now, no wrath. Yahuwah still has wrath.
Yeah.
He's not playing around when he says, you keep doing these things, I'm going to vomit you out. The reason we are in America today and we're not in the land of our spiritual forefathers is because of those types of sins. This is part of our punishment. Living in a Babylonian type of country is a punishment to even us. So this is what we need to understand. He says that his people are going to return to him in these latter days. They're gonna be astonished at their sins that they've committed and the things that they've provoked him to anger with. The Queen of Heaven is one of the worst things. It's one of the worst things that made him scatter them. So the idea that, where does it say to honor a mortal? And I'm speaking mainly to Catholics right now. Where does it say to honor a mortal on equal with the Most High? Nowhere. That is an idolatry of itself. You don't have to bow down and worship her, but if you're calling her the mother of God, okay, just for example, you are putting her at his level. And where they twist scriptures, they say, well, she gave birth to Yahusha. She gave birth to the vessel that Yahusha came into. Yeah. Yahusha was the spirit that was in that child. Okay? This is what we need to understand. We are not our bodies. Our bodies are vessels. Okay? So she is not literally the mother of Yahuwah. She's the mother of that baby that Yahusha took on flesh. That flesh that he took on, she's the mother of that. She's not the literal mother of Yahusha or of Yahuwah. This is where this whole Trinitarian nonsense comes in. And this is where a lot of people misunderstand what her purpose was. Her purpose was to have a fetus that eventually would grow into a body in her stomach during her pregnancy, that eventually when Yahusha, his spirit, the Ruach HaKadosh, when it did come to earth, it took on that body that was growing in her stomach. That's what she's the mother of. She's the mother of that body that he took on. She's not the mother of him. And I think that's where the disconnect, because we try to understand the virgin birth like a normal human birth, and it's not. No. It's not the same thing. Because the soul, the nefesh that was in that body, that child, was Yahusha. It wasn't a normal soul. It wasn't a normal even Ruach in there. It was a portion of Yahuwah's Ruach was in that child, because it was Yahuwah made flesh. This is what we don't fully understand. And so that's where the whole Mary worship starts. If you think she's the mother of the Creator, that's why you're being deceived into worshiping her. She's the mother of the flesh that the Creator took on. She's not the mother of the Creator. The Creator has no beginning or end, has no mother or father. Melchizedek. It's very, very clear in Scripture that Yahuwah does not look at Miriam as the actual physical mother of Yahusha, because Yahusha had no beginning or end. Before he took on that baby's flesh that was in her stomach, before he took on that embryo or whatever you want to call it, that body of flesh he took on, before that happened, Yahusha existed from eternity. He did not start in her womb.
That's right.
So this is what we need to understand. Us, we start in our mother's womb. We don't have
Mhm.
pre-existence. This is like, and I'm not trying to harp on people in a mean way, but I'm trying to. It's foundational scripturally to understand what the virgin birth is versus
Yeah.
what a normal birth is. It's two completely different things, and this is what the devil takes advantage of.
Mhm.
He takes advantage of our ignorance of the scriptures, and that's why.
And with all of that being absolutely true, I just want to say that she was a very special vessel
Mhm.
that was chosen for a very important task. She nurtured him, she raised him, she loved him. She,
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to say that she had to be a very, very important servant
Mhm.
in Father's eyes too, and also Joseph. Let's not forget about him. He spent more time with our master child than probably anybody else, and and he would have been the one to bring him into the temple and bring the sacrifice that he brought on Passover and all of that. So yeah, absolutely, all that is true, and but they were two extremely
Yeah.
important servants.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. No one's not saying that.
Oh, I know that. I just want to
And,
make the
and
point.
as far as the mother worship, Yahusha
Yeah.
told these guys what he felt about them honoring his mother too much.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He
Yes.
said because they're like, Baruch is the breast
Yeah,
who sucked, and he right away snaps at them and says, "No, Baruch is he who does my father's will."
That's
I
right.
mean, you don't put any type of human
That's
on
right.
a pedestal,
Yeah.
and that's idolatry to put someone on a pedestal.
Mhm.
And that's what Catholicism is about. Catholicism, like I keep saying, keep reiterating, is the Babylonian mystery religion.
Mhm.
You got Mother of God, Son of God, and Father God, and that's the Mother God is the Father God and the Son God, and you see that with all their little holidays. Okay,
Mhm.
Father's Day. Many people don't know this, but Father's Day goes back to the sky god Baal. Okay, it goes back to Odin, Zeus. Okay, because before it was known as like honoring the father, it would like the father of someone. It would be used as honoring, the god of the sky, Baal.
Yeah.
Baal was known as like the storm god, the god of the sky, the god of the firmament to a lot of these pagan religions. That's why you'll see in the Canaanite religion, he's associated with lightning and all this and that.
Yeah.
And again, goes back to Satan. I saw Satan fall out of heaven as lightning. So Baal and Satan sometimes are like in the religions equated with one another. But anyway, so hopefully you guys got something out of that message. Not trying to hold you guys, not people in this meeting here, but hold you guys on YouTube and wherever you're seeing this from too long. So please search the scriptures for yourself. Remember, there's no private interpretation of prophecy according to Kepha. Okay, according to Peter, we must always interpret prophecy by what it literally says. Okay, and Shabbat Shalom. Have a great rest of Yahusha's Shabbat, guys.